And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man.
Welcome back to the Freedom First podcast, where we bring on experts and heroes from all walks of life to have in-depth conversations about the most important topics and issues our world is facing. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 5th episode of the Freedom First podcast. I'm your host, Blaine Smotherman, and today we have our co-host with us, Eric Kern. Today's episode is brought to you by 2X Print Company. 2X Print Company is a local California print shop, customizing in hats, t-shirts, sweaters, and much more. Make sure to contact Ryan on Instagram at 2X Print Co., and they will take care of all your printing needs. Being able to protect yourself and your family is ever so important, but being properly trained is vital. If you are looking for firearm training and safety courses, make sure to contact Jeffries Firearm Training. Anywhere from intro and basic courses for men and women to classes for the most advanced firearm experts, Ronnie Jeffries will take care of all your needs. Make sure to contact Jeffries Firearm Training on Instagram at Jeffries Firearm Training or through email jeffriesfirearmtraining@gmail.com. Today we have an exciting guest on. She is the recently retired American gymnastics coach of the UCLA Bruins women's gymnastics team. She was the head coach from 1991 to 2019. She's a 7-time national champion, 4-time conference coach of the year, the 2018 West Region head coach of the year, Pac-12 gymnastics coach of the century, and the 3rd most winning NCAA gymnastics coach of all time. She's the recent author of a book titled Life is Short, Don't Wait to Dance. And most importantly, she's a breast cancer survivor. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the legendary Miss Val. Thank you everyone for joining the episode number 5 of the Freedom First podcast. Today we have an amazing guest on, 7-time NCAA National Champion coach of the UCLA women's gymnastics team. She is the Pac-12 Coach of the Century and the author of Life is Short, Don't Wait to Dance. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the legendary Miss Val.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, welcome to the show. We're so honored and just excited to have you on. And it really does mean a lot to us.
Absolutely.
So
pleasure.
We do have our co-host, Eric Kern is with us today. So he is my co-host and I'm, Blaine Smotherman, the host. So it's just, we're really honored.
Hi, Miss Val. Yeah, it's
great.
Awesome to have you on here. This is you're definitely our biggest guest so far. So this means the world to us. There's a lot of people excited to hear what you have to say. So thank you.
Okay, guys, no pressure. Here we go.
So we have a little segment on the Freedom First podcast called the Freedom Minute. And this is just to kind of get warmed up. And I know, you being a coach for over 30 years and you know all about getting warmed up. So we're going to kind of jump into it. So we have some questions to kind of ask you and, let our listeners a little insight into your life as well. So,
okay.
Question 1 is, what was your first car?
Toyota Celica.
Oh, nice. How long did you drive that for?
About 7 years.
Nice.
So was that your high school car, your college car?
I think so. I'm not a car person, so I don't really care about getting a new car all the time. I just want something that works that isn't going to give me any headaches. Yeah. So that was my brother was like car freak guy and I was not. So yeah, I love my little Toyota Celica. And then my car that I loved was my Toyota 4Runner because I got in a few really bad accidents, skidding out like in the rain. And that thing was like a tank. And so when I had grandchildren, I have 4 grandchildren, I got into my last accident with my car, my 4Runner, and they fixed it up. I was like, I gave it to them because I knew that I would feel safe for them having them in my tank.
Right.
So
a big car like that, as long as it gets you from point A to point B and then it's safe, right?
Exactly. That's all I care about.
Awesome.
That's awesome. So question 2 is, who is your favorite superhero and why?
My favorite superhero. That is such a great question. My favorite superhero would have to be in fantasy. It would be Wonder Woman, And in real life, it would be Eleanor Roosevelt.
Oh, that's amazing. Awesome. And then the next question is, what was your most embarrassing coaching moment?
Okay, how long do we have? Seriously.
As much time as
my
you need.
my most embarrassing coaching moment, there are two of them. One of them was I was in Poly Pavilion. There were about 7,000 people there, and I was getting ready to introduce Bella Caroli and Kim Zemeskel. And I said, I hadn't been on the microphone a lot because I was a new head coach and a little bit nervous. And I said, please join me in giving a whelm workum for Bella Caroli and Kim Zemeskel. And everybody started laughing. And I had, my brother was sitting in the first row and he just kind of did his hand to his forehead emoji, oh my God, my sister's so stupid. And I didn't catch it. I didn't know why they were laughing. So then finally, Kim Zemeskel said, you said whelm workum instead of warm welcome. I was like, oh.
So you didn't catch it at first then? You didn't really
I know.
Yeah.
And then it happened, the same type of thing happened again. I'm going to make a really long story very short. I'm in Athens, Georgia. We're at a meet, and there's the night before the meet, there's a black tie event, 900 people at this thing. And each head coach had to get up and give a thank you. And the Georgia coach said to me, make sure you thank Poland Springs. So I get up and I say, I understand Poland Springs has put a lot behind supporting this event. So if Mr. Springs is here, I would love for him to stand up so that we can properly thank you. And everybody in the audience laughed. I had no clue Poland Springs was a water.
Oh my goodness. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I'm telling you, for years and years and years after when we would go back to Athens, Georgia, and I'd be walking around their little town, people always said to me as they're walking past me, did you find Mr. Springs yet?
That's hilarious.
Okay.
That's awesome.
It's like those little moments, they still stick in the back of your mind. It's I can't believe I said that or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So kind of for us too, as new podcasters, we kind of do the same thing sometimes to where we go back and listen and we're like, oh, wow, we kind of messed that sentence up and it's kind of, luckily we're able to edit it, but it's kind of funny.
But you know what? Humbling. I do have to say, I'm going to button this up with, and these are for especially the young people that are listening out there. People ask me all the time, my athletes ask me all the time, do I get nervous when I do speaking engagements? And I really don't, because I've learned that when you make mistakes and you can laugh at yourself, it actually makes the audience like you better than if you were just to stand up there and be perfect. And I grew up a ballerina. I was a ballet dancer, and I had a solo one time, and I was standing center stage, 10 spotlights on me, and I'm doing a series of high kicks on my point shoes. And in one of the kicks, my point shoe came out from under me and I landed smack on my tailbone in the center of the stage. So not only was I embarrassed, but I was in a tremendous amount of pain. And I remember thinking, I don't even know if I can get up. I can turn around and crawl off stage. I can ask them to lower the curtain. What am I going to do? And I took a deep breath and I stood up. I literally looked at the audience. I gave a little shrug of my shoulders, and I picked up the music and I finished the ballet, the piece. And it's the only time in my entire career that I got a standing ovation.
Wow.
That's incredible.
That's awesome. Yeah. It kind of speaks of who the person you are, just kind of you just kind of take it for what it is and you kind of make the best of the situation. And that's kind of awesome. So,
yeah. And you're so right when you could laugh at yourself, because I've done the same thing. So I kind of get animated sometimes in the classroom, and I've been I've got on tables and stuff, and I may or may not have kind of fell off a table or two at some point. So it's kind of funny when you can laugh, but also it is sometimes embarrassing. But when you kind of let whether it's students or athletes into your life and kind of you could play it off and laugh at yourself, it definitely does let them kind of like you and get a little insight into your own life.
It does. Yeah. And then another story like that, when I was writing my book, for the you people that don't know anything about me, I've won 7 national championships and I'm in the UCLA Athletic Hall of Fame. And as they said, I'm the Pac-12 Coach of the Century, like all these great accolades, but I've never done gymnastics. And so when I was asked to be the head coach, I had no idea what I was doing. And when I figured out what type of a leader I wanted to be, I really coached. Like a lot of my coaching was what we call unorthodox. I did not coach how other coaches coached. And so when I was writing my book, I told my co-author, I got cold feet like halfway through writing the book. And I said, I cannot finish this book and I can't publish it. And he goes, why? And I said, because people are going to expect to glean all this amazing information from the 7-time national championship head gymnastics coach. And they're going to read my book and they're going to realize I'm a total whack job. and my co-author laughed like you just did. And he goes, exactly. Miss Val, you are a whack job. That's why you have to write the book, because you give all of us permission to let our inner whack jobs come out. So that's why I wrote the book.
Yeah, I was one of the interviews I seen with you and Caitlyn Ohashi. I think it was on. I can't remember what show it was on, but you had said that, and she was like, "Yeah, you are." I thought that was funny. The next question, Eric, you're going to go and ask this one.
Yeah. So if you could sit down and have a conversation with anyone throughout history, who would it be and why?
There are a lot of people, because I'm a voracious reader and I was a history major. So there are a ton of people that I would want to glean information from. But I have a lot of questions about life and about afterlife and about good versus evil and all that stuff. So I would have a conversation with Jesus, because I figure he's got all the answers.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, you definitely can't go wrong with that answer for sure. So
no.
Last question. If you were elected as president of the United States of America for a day, what would be the first thing you would do?
Gosh, you're asking this at a pretty important time in our history, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, that's a very hard question to answer seriously, because there are so many things that need to be done, as we have seen in the last few months in particularly. But but I've always said that if I was Queen of the Universe, President of the United States, I would make it mandatory that every single human being, when they graduate high school, has to go in some type of service work for 2 years before they can go to college, before they go into a different type of vocational job, before they go play professional sports. So whether it is working for the Peace Corps, working for Habitat for Humanity, working for Girls and Boys Club, go into a third world country and help. I think our world would be better if, when people turn 17, 18 years old, they have to go into some type of service for humanity before they focus on what they want to do and what their calling is.
Right. Have them invest into something larger than themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's awesome. I have a question for you, and this is it's not really one of the questions we had, but since you got to, you had a really strong relationship with Coach Wooden at the end of his life, and you did spend a lot of time with him. If what would be, I guess, one thing, if he were here today, you would want to ask him, or you would want to, I don't know, if you got to sit down with him one more time, I guess.
If I got to sit down with Coach one more time and it was just he and I would ask him, when he always said, I wish I would have done more. I wish I could have done more. And as I'm getting, further and further out of my career, it's been over a year since I've retired now, and looking back, and the student athletes that have been reaching out and the alumni and all that, I would want to ask Coach Wooden to expound on that. Are you asking are you wishing you would have done more for your family, for your athletes, for yourself? Because he never really was comfortable in Los Angeles. He was a Midwest boy, and he was kind of like a fish out of water in LA. And as you all know, he had a very strong faith. So is his comment to that does he wish he could have done more for his Savior? So I have I would hope to have a pretty serious conversation with him, asking him to expound on what he wished he would have done more for, whom he wished he would have done more for.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy to think, like, for how much he did for so many different individuals, whether it's, back then or even till this day, and it's just going to continue to grow. It's just kind of that leadership quality that I think a lot of great coaches and a lot of great leaders have, is just to just keep wanting to do more and just, not necessarily keep going with their legacy, but just, that selflessness that, he had. So.
Yeah. And, I know a few of the players. I know a few of the players that did not have a good relationship with him when they were on the team. One of them is Andy Hill, and Andy did not speak to Coach Wooden for 25 years.
Right.
And what was something that I've been thinking about a lot with all of with social media and how venomous people can be on social media. I've been thinking about Coach a lot and how he let his humility speak for him in those moments. So when players would say things that, they would remind him of times that were not the best, instead of explaining and profusely apologizing or whatever, he let his humility do the talking. And I think that's a very powerful lesson that I've learned from him.
Especially today with, there is a lot of kind of narcissism and kind of that me, you see today, whether it's because of social media, whatever it is, and for him, like, he would almost be shy and embarrassed when people would say, he is the coach of the century and things like that.
Right.
Just the humility. It's amazing. And a lot of people could continue learning, for eternity from him. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that came from his faith. He had a very, very, very strong faith.
Right. And, the 7-point creed from his father, it's just all faith-based if you really look at it. Yeah. And so thank you so much, Miss Val, for answering those questions. And, your story is incredible, and you've really led an impeccable life. But you became a 7-time national gymnastics coach champion at UCLA. However, you talk about you never actually, not only did you not compete in gymnastics, you never really competed in competitive sports. So I would ask you, where did it all start? Kind of going back to a younger age, whether it was, with ballet, where did it all start in that kind of foundation? Where was it built at?
For coaching, for becoming a coach?
I think, just for becoming a coach and a ballet dancer in general. Like going early in your life, you became a ballet dancer. What was that kind of initial thing, and what were the steps that led to it?
That became because I have scoliosis in my back, and my doctor told my parents to get me into gymnastics or dance, and they chose dance. My dad's an artist, so it was like natural for me to go into the arts. I'm not a natural gifted ballerina. I don't have the typical stereotypical body. I am not naturally flexible. I literally would stand in some auditions, and some auditions, they just have you stand there, and then they go down the line and they let you go before you even get to dance. And I was told a few times that my head is too big and my neck is too short and my feet are too small. And I remember trying to squeeze my head in to make it less big. But once I got to the part where you could actually dance, I am a gifted dancer. I'm not a gifted technician, but I have a gift of dance. And so that's how I got roles and cast in ballets. And that's how I got invited to be in professional ballet companies, is because they said, you're not the most flexible, but boy, you can dance. And I loved the moment of being on stage where everything comes together. Your preparation as a dancer, the music, the lights, the costumes, the audience, the theater, the smell of the theater, where it all just comes together. The music starts and you get to dance and perform. And it was shocking to me how many artists get super, super, super nervous right before they go on stage. And I was never like that. I couldn't understand why some of them would be throwing up before they went on stage. Like, that was so weird to me. And when I was trying to figure out what I could bring to a gymnastics team, besides the fact that I can choreograph and do all this, it's like, oh God, I knew that I could prepare them mentally, emotionally, and physically to be calm when they were standing there. Like, the metaphor for gymnasts standing in the wings is standing there waiting for the judge to salute them to go up on the event. And I knew I could prepare them to be calm and confident and excited in that moment as well, if not better than any other coach in the country. So that's what I was going to bring to the gymnasts that I got to coach.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And it kind of harps on a question that I had for you, is you kind of see that a lot of these superstars, like the Michael Jordans, aren't necessarily the guys who are the best coaches, rather than like the Nick Sabans and the guys who maybe weren't like the key focal point on their team, the Steve Kerrs. Like, I was just always wondering how that came about, and like what internally does it make to like be a good coach, I guess I would say.
I think that it's funny you asked this, because I just taught a class at UCLA, a graduate school class on transformative coaching and leadership. And we studied 10 different coaches and their commonalities. And one of the commonalities that the great coaches that I've studied has is a love for the game. And so, like with myself, I'm not necessarily a gymnastics fan, as in I don't watch gymnastics constantly. I can't tell you who the top gymnasts in the world are, whatever. But I loved the craft of taking these bodies, these superhuman, superhero, young female bodies, and helping them develop into champions mentally, emotionally, and physically, and crafting their brilliance to be able to go out and compete well. And when you look at Nick Saban, you mentioned, you look at John Wooden, you look at Bobby Knight, you look at coaches that have been extremely successful, they love the game. The second thing is they love the minutia of preparing for the game. And what was really interesting in teaching this class was, you look at someone like Bobby Knight, who is known for having a huge temper. He's known for getting physically aggressive with his players. He's, infamous. He's infamous now for throwing the chair across the courtyard, the court, excuse me. But what's interesting is players went to him and players played for him because he was true to himself. He was authentic to his moral character, his moral fiber, his moral foundation was infallible. And so you take someone like a Bobby Knight, if he would have tried to emulate John Wooden, he would not have been a successful coach. So you really have to, as a coach, I think as a coach, as a parent, as a leader of anything, if you're a teacher, a leader in an organization, in business, really figure out your why. Why are you excited to do this job? And then figure out your how, which is basically your playbook, your negotiables, your non-negotiables, what your moral foundation is going to look like, and make sure that every decision you make is in line with that moral compass, your personal moral compass, not somebody else's.
Right. So just, embodying yourself and being yourself. Because I know one of the things you had talked about with, like winning doesn't always equal success is, if you're not yourself, if you're trying to be someone else, you're always going to be a second-rate them, right? And more importantly, you're not going to be a first-rate you. So that's kind of what you're talking about there. And
right.
That's so powerful. Cause I think I was telling some of my students the other day, like, I asked them a question, kind of coming from you, does success or does winning always equal success? And it was interesting to see some of their perspectives and their thoughts on that.
Yeah. What age do you teach?
I'm 7th, 8th grade history.
Yeah.
So 12.
So what
13.
I would love to ask them and really get them to get into a frame of mind to be able to think about this question seriously is, what would you do? What decisions would you make? How would you act? How would you dress if you weren't afraid of being judged or being liked or being bullied or put down? What does your authentic self look like and feel like? And what is preventing you from doing that? Because for most of us, it's fear of other people's opinions, FOPO. It's not even just fear of missing out, it's fear of being judged. And I think that's one of the real downsides of social media is there is a constant comparison of yourself with that beautiful image that you're seeing or the fun that those people are having. And when you compare yourself to someone else, you're taking away your own joy. I think Winston Churchill said, comparison is the thief of joy. Anytime you spend that moment comparing yourself to somebody else, you've stripped yourself of the self-respect that you deserve to feel joyful being you. And I love it. I love speaking to kids about this because I love just telling them, in the history of man, there's been like 9 billion human beings that have walked the face of the earth. And the truth is that there's never been another you. Ever. In the history of man, there's never been another you. And when you die, there never will be another you. So you are here for a reason. You are unique and special and wonderful in ways that no one else on earth has ever experienced. So don't diminish your light by trying to be somebody else and by being worried about what other people think.
Yeah. Because
when you do that, and I say diminish your inner light, when you do that, you're robbing yourself, your inner community, and the world of the whole purpose of why you're here.
Right. And social media has played such a big part with, you have kids comparing how many likes they have or how many views they have. And I have a kind of a question is like, have you seen, your last couple of years of coaching, did you see a lot of that happening? Because you're teaching, or you're coaching 21, 20, 18, 19-year-olds.
Yeah, it's gotten worse. Yeah, I think every coach that you ask that's coached, say, over 15, 20 years, we all say this. We all have noticed the same thing, that that athletes are much more concerned with being liked than they are being respected. They are much more concerned with conforming and fitting in than being themselves, just do you. I thought you were going to ask if I had seen The Social Dilemma on Netflix, the documentary, because every single person that has a smartphone and social media needs to watch that. And it's quite eye-opening and it's frightening. It was frightening to me.
Right. I just finished watching it like 2 weeks ago, and I agree with you. It's not only eye-opening, but definitely frightening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how have you...
And I've had parents say to me who have like 10, 11-year-olds, I said, you need to watch it with your children. And they said, no, they're too young for that. I said, do they have a phone? They go, yeah. I go, okay, no. Now is exactly the time they need to watch it.
Yeah, I mean,
if your child has a phone or your child knows what TikTok is or any of those other social platforms, if they know what those platforms are, they need to watch that. It's never too young.
Think about your 11, even like younger, like 10, 11, 12-year-olds have these smartphones. Like they have the whole world in the palm of their hand.
Right.
Like it's incredible. How are you able to, I guess, maybe, I wouldn't say deal with it, but how are you able to have success or were you later on in your career with a lot of those athletes?
I spent a lot of time talking with our student athletes about life. I would say the majority of our team meetings we had were about life, and they were not about gymnastics. Because I really did feel that if I helped develop them into the best human beings they could be, that would help them be better athletes versus vice versa, versus helping them be great athletes and then hoping that translates to being great humans. But I just found a bug in my room. That's why I forgot my train of thought.
No, I mean,
okay. I've never seen a June bug in my life. And we just moved to Arkansas. So there's a June bug in my room right now. Okay. I'm not going to freak out. It's okay. But I would ask them, like every single year, one of the first questions I asked in a team meeting was, are you more interested in being liked or respected? And every single year, the freshmen said, I know it's the wrong answer, but I'm more interested in being liked. And then by the time they became like sophomores, juniors, and hopefully by the time they're seniors, they go, that question, Miss Val, about being liked or respected? I don't care about being liked anymore. I want to be respected. So we talk about that. We talk a lot about the difference between being able to go out in your world and observe people without judging them. Can you observe someone who looks different than you and acts different than you without formulating a judgment on them? Even if they're being mean, even if they're, if they're being hurtful and harming someone else, you got to step in and be the superhero and save the day. But like even on social media, the people that say hurtful, hateful things, instead of judging them, can you just observe their comments and then give them grace and say, gosh, it's so sad that this is coming from someplace deep within them.
Yeah.
And so we would have like endless conversations about things like this. When it would get to be midterms and finals and that they'd come in stressed out and all that, especially the freshmen, I'd call them in my office. We'd just have a little chat and I'd say, okay, I have a question. How would you feel right now if you had just put your phone away for the last week and not been on social media and not been checking your text 24/7? And every single time I ask that question, the response is, I would be a lot less stressed. And I go, oh, really? Why? Oh, because I wouldn't be checking my texts constantly. I wouldn't be checking TikTok every 6 seconds. I'd be getting more sleep. I would be getting more quality studying in. I would have better conversation with my family. I would just be less stressed. And I'm like, well, then put the phone away. The phone's the phone's not attached to you. You're attached to the phone. Put it away.
Right.
It's your choice.
What crazy thing is, going back to the social dilemma, I thought it was so powerful how some of those people that had created some of the apps themselves were almost addicted to them when they went home.
No, not some. All of them.
Yeah, all of them.
All of them. So those of you that don't know what we're talking about, is the people that wrote the algorithms for our social media platforms are the ones that were interviewed for this documentary, Social Dilemma. And at the end, they're talking about what you just talked about. But I also loved it when they said, oh God, yeah, I had kids. There's no way they're getting a cell phone. Like the people that wrote the algorithms to get you addicted to your social media platform will not let their children have cell phones.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like morality and like there's just it's crazy. I was pretty struck by that.
Yeah.
So kind of going you had talked about like just you're having, whether it's athletes or students, kind of being able to kind of express themselves and be themselves. I would say I kind of followed not only your relationship with Caitlyn Ohashi but her transition. Was she one of those ones that kind of embodied that?
Oh yeah. And Caitlyn came in. She was a bad girl. She was a little rebel her freshman year. She did not want anybody telling her what to do ever again. And she she certainly acted out and wasn't the best student athlete she could be by far. And when you've probably heard this story, but we were in a team meeting halfway through her freshman year. Oh, this is in my TED Talk. Halfway through her freshman year, we were in a team meeting with our sports psychologist, and he was just explaining to all of us that we all have that thing, that anchor inside of us that's holding us down and holding us back from us being able to be our true selves. And when he got to Caitlyn, he just said, what's your anchor? And she said, honestly, I don't want to be great again. I just don't want to be great again in gymnastics. And I was like, I felt like I got sucker punched, because my first thought was, I'm giving you $60,000 a year in a scholarship to do gymnastics.
Right.
And you don't want to be able to do gymnastics well again. So why am I giving you a scholarship? Thank God I didn't say that. And then her teammate that was sitting next to her just said, every single thing she associates with being great is hurtful and negative. Why would she want to go back there? And gosh, at that moment, I was like, okay, my job with Caitlyn Ohashi is to help her find her self-love, her self-respect, so that she can choose to either continue to do gymnastics or not, but choose from a healthy place, a positive place, versus a negative, hurtful place. And in order for me to do that as a coach, I have to earn her trust. And we all know, I don't care how old you are or young you are listening to this right now, but in any relationship you have in life, any relationship with your parents, with your boyfriend, your girlfriend, with your family, with your teammates, with your friends, if you do not have trust with each other, you will not have a good relationship. And so I knew I had to develop her trust, and trust in any relationship takes time and consistency. And I had to prove to Kate that I really cared about her more as a human being than just as another great athlete that can help me win another championship.
Yeah, and I would imagine, that's why you've been so successful. You've built close relationships with a lot of your athletes. I've seen, a lot of them, whether it's through videos or, just talking about them in your book or whatever it is, like they know you love them and you have that bond. And I would say I wouldn't say a lot, but there's a lot of coaches that don't as well, that they don't build that relationship. And I know being a teacher, I have kind of a philosophy of relationships before rigor, or relationships before lessons. Because if you can't build those relationships, the kids or the athletes, they're not going to be able to be all they can be, and they're not going to be passionate about it, and they're not going to have that have that passion for being there.
But that's why I said a few minutes ago that you really need to know your why, because there are a lot of coaches that have won championships, that have won Olympic gold medals, without caring about their athletes as humans. There are a lot of coaches that simply look at the athlete and treat the athletes as great athletes, and they only focus on the game and the mental game, the physical game, the emotional game as an athlete, but not as a human. But they have, if you want to say, this is why I asked the question, is all winning success? So if you're that type of a coach and you have won a bunch of national championships, have you been successful? And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer for that. I think there is an important question in asking, what is my why? So if you're going to say as a coach that, oh yeah, I care about my athletes as people. Oh yeah, I care about them as human beings. But when they want to go home because one of their parents just got diagnosed with cancer and the kid's freaking out and she needs to go home and see her parent, but you don't want her to miss practice training. Okay, well, you can't say that you care about your athlete as a human being. So know your why, be authentic with it, and make sure your athletes know. Like I said before, the players that went to play for Bobby Knight, they knew what they were getting into. They didn't go blindly and expect him to be this nice Santa Claus type of guy. They knew the bully they were getting, and they wanted to be in that environment because they wanted to win, and he had proven that he could win that way.
Right. And I mean, I think this shows, I have a kind of comparison between you and Gino Ariyama. So one of the things he does is like, he tells his the ladies on that play for him, when I'm watching film, I'm looking at the sideline. If you're not enthusiastic about your teammates, then you're probably not going to be playing. And I was watching some performances, and especially the Michael Jackson routine that Caitlyn did. Every one of those gymnasts were cheering. They were happy, excited for Caitlyn and everyone else. So the whole team's just cheering for them. So that's kind of one thing that popped in my mind when I was watching that, is like, yeah, there's a lot of great coaches, like Gino. He's literally, when they're watching film, they grade like that. He's watching who's enthusiastic, who's cheering for their team. But you know what I think is important to finish this comment that you're making, which is a really great comment. I'll just a little segue. When I would go into gyms and recruit, I wasn't watching the athletes' gymnastics, because you can get that off of YouTube. I was watching how they treated their coaches and their fellow teammates. And there's a girl on the UCLA team. She's one of their superstars right now. Her name's Nia Dennis. She was like a young Kobe Bryant when she was like 10, 11 years old. And I remember being in her gym. She was 12 years old, and she was getting ready to vault, and a teammate of hers across the gym had a bad fall on bars. And Nia stopped what she was doing and ran over there to make sure she was okay, but also to comfort her, even though her coaches were there, everybody was around her. But it was important to Nia that she be there for her teammate. And in that second, I was like, I want Nia Dennis on my team. And it had to do with the fact that she was talented, but it had more to do with her character. And then getting back to your comment about Caitlyn Ohashi's floor routine, and everybody says that they watch her teammates in the back that are cheering and laughing and doing the dance with her, the choreo and all that. Your teammates are not going to do that for you on the sideline if they don't have tremendous love and respect for you. And so the magic potion, the secret sauce to Caitlyn Ohashi on the team, was that she didn't ever act like a superstar. She was just another teammate. And so that year, when she got super, super celebrity and was flying all around the country to do all these morning talk shows, she never missed workout for one of them. And we worked out at 7:45 in the morning. I remember one time telling her, because I was worried that she was going to get run down and injured or sick. I remember saying, Kate, listen, why don't you just sleep in and come in at 9 o'clock? She goes, no, my teammates are going to be there working out at 7:45. So I'm going to be there working out at 7:45. And she came in every day just as a normal teammate. She never let it get to her head. We never treated her differently. She never asked to be treated differently. And the more fame she got, the more love and care she showed her teammates, like by moving their mats, by setting their boards, by helping them out. The more celebrity she got, the more of a servant's heart she showed. And that was the secret sauce.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear, especially from, like you said, from her freshman year to where she was kind of this person who really didn't know her identity or who she wanted to be, and not wanted to be this great athlete, like as you were saying, to this selfless individual who was just at the top of her game and put the team first.
Right.
What do you have to say, or what advice do you have for coaches right now, that how do you create that tight knit group and create that love just within the organization itself?
I think that you need to have, like I said before, a really strong personal philosophy of why you're coaching, and you need to share that with your team. They need to understand exactly what the team philosophy is, the negotiables, the non-negotiables. And then you need to be able to hold them accountable. And there's a fine line between holding someone accountable and punishing them. And I believe that fine line is whenever you cross it and you become demeaning as a coach, or disrespectful, and it is a fine line. And I think early on in my career, I know I crossed that line. I was really sarcastic and snarky, and I thought I was funny, and I wasn't. And it was hurtful and it was demeaning. And so I think there's also, as a head coach, you need to create a safe space with your staff and with your athletes, and that they can say anything they want to you or to someone else, as long as that they're saying it honestly and respectfully. Because I consider that a safe space where things can be discussed, which, going back to social media, that's one of my biggest issues that I have with that platform. I feel that social media is the ultimate mask, and people can say anything they want without any accountability. And to the point where they have fake accounts where you don't even know who the person is, Yeah. And so as a leader, as a coach, as a team captain, as a parent, whatever, that you're setting up this team culture, there has to be, everybody has to know what the rules are and the non-negotiables of the rules, and then what the repercussions are going to be. And I never, ever, ever believed in every single student athlete on the team having to do the same thing every day, because I think that's ridiculous. But in every single team I had student athletes that would get upset because they had to do 8 beam routines and finish them before they moved on to the next event, where Caitlyn Ohashi didn't even have to do beam. She just had to go over and do conditioning and stretch and spend time with the trainer. But that's what Caitlyn needed to be her best on Saturday. And this is what you need to be your best on Saturday. So it should be a compliment that I am coaching you as individuals, but quite often it was taken as a punishment.
That's interesting. Just being able to coach to the individual, and because everyone's different, right? Everyone is unique and different and has different abilities. And, one thing that I noticed about your teams, they're so diverse, whether, not just racially and ethnically, but also who they are as people and how they express themselves. How has that kind of contributed and, allowed you guys to not only bond and connect, but just have so much success?
Well, I think that is a big part of the brand that I created for UCLA Gymnastics. And Bart Connor said to me one time, he was commentating for NBC, and after a national championship, he said the exact same thing to me that you just said, that I have the most diverse team in the country. And he said, I'm not talking about their ethnicity. He says, I'm talking about the fact that you really help develop and celebrate every one of your athletes as unique individuals. And then he said to me, you have proven that when you celebrate diversity, being different, it's actually unifying versus being divisive. And God, that was the greatest compliment that I think I could have ever been given. And like I said before, I think that's part of the sparkle of UCLA Gymnastics, is that every single time one of our athletes go up, you're going to see a whole different flavor from them and their gymnastics and their personalities. And yet, like I said, there are those non-negotiables of how I expect everyone to represent themselves and our team and our university.
Yeah, powerful. And just, celebrating that uniqueness and diversity. And with all those things, you went on to win 7 national titles, be Pac-12 Coach of the Century. And so you've battled different things. And I believe in, 2014, you were diagnosed with breast cancer.
Yep.
And since it is October, so we are celebrating Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and kind of a special episode, you coming on, and can you kind of talk to us about that and the process and what kept you going every day?
Yeah. I actually love telling this story because I think it's a super important story. I had won, 6 national championships at that point. And in order to help develop young adults into being champions in life, you have to work on that yourself. So I had to walk the walk and figure out how to be a champion in life as well. And I got hit with the biggest challenge when I had the call from my doctor that I had a very, very aggressive form of breast cancer. And any of you that have had bad news like that, whether it be for yourself or your family, your friends, my mind went into hysteria. And there were all these thoughts that were anywhere from how many more days do I have to live to how painful is it going to be? Am I going to lose all my hair? Am I going to be throwing up every day? Do I have to quit my job? On and on. And in the middle of this hysteria, I heard very clearly, be anxious for nothing and grateful for all things. And you and your listeners, you may translate this as the universe speaking to me or cosmic energy speaking to me. I translated it personally as God speaking to me. And I went home and I told my husband about the breast cancer. And I said to him, but get this, I heard be anxious for nothing and grateful for all things. And he said, yeah, that's from the Bible. Well, I had never read the Bible. I mean, I grew up Greek Orthodox. It was my Bible I grew up with is an ancient Greek. I never read the Bible. So he goes, go look it up. So I went and looked it up, and sure enough, in black and white, it says, be anxious for nothing, and then paraphrased, and grateful for all things. And it was like my world stopped. I heard this before I ever read it. This was a commandment. And in that second, I chose to obey the commandment. But I did not know how I was supposed to obey not being anxious, because I was just told I had a potentially fatal disease, tumor in my breast. So I go to my doctor the next day, and she says to me, I just want you to know that if you got diagnosed with your type of breast cancer 10 years ago, in 2004, instead of 2014, we had absolutely nothing for you. I would have had to say, I'm sorry, go home, get your affairs in order, say goodbye to your family and friends.
Wow.
She said, but since you're being diagnosed in this time, if you choose to get chemotherapy for a year, and if you choose to get surgery, we know it's going to work. And in that moment, I understood the commandment, be anxious for nothing. How was I not going to be anxious? By being grateful. I didn't have to get chemotherapy. I got to get chemotherapy because I lived at a time that had the chemo. I was so excited to get chemotherapy that I called it going to my chemo spa. And switching that one word, have to get to, not only changed my entire experience and year of going through chemotherapy and surgery, 4 surgeries, but switching that one word, have to get to, has changed every moment of my life for the positive since then. I don't have to go to work. I get to go to work because I have a job. Through quarantine, I mean, every day that I woke up sad and depressed, and I was like, stop it. You don't have to stay home. You get to stay home because you have a home. How cool is that?
Yeah.
And on and on and on.
Now, I was the same way. Just so many people have been out of jobs and lost their jobs, and just being so thankful to have a job and be able to go to a place to work. And so I've been grateful for that. So that's
and so as you can imagine, it did bite me in the butt quite a few times when I would say to my student athletes that you'd go, Oh gosh, guys. Okay, I can't be tomorrow. I have to have another compliance meeting. And my athletes would say, "You don't have to, Miss Val. You get to have a compliance meeting." Okay,
wow.
gotcha.
So I guess what would you tell someone that is, whether, they have just been diagnosed, what would you tell someone that has been diagnosed with breast cancer?
I would say, and I'm asked a lot because sadly it's very prevalent, but I would say, first of all, regardless of what type of cancer you're diagnosed with, we live at an age where you can actually have hope, because there are people that are living very long lives with very bad forms of cancer. And whether they're on these cocktails, these trials, or whether a medicine comes up tomorrow that says, guess what? We have a cure for you. I have a friend who's 85 years old, and she has lived 25 years with 17 tumors that are stage 4, which is the worst type of cancer.
Wow.
She has 17 stage 4 tumors that she's lived with for 25 years. And if you looked at her, you'd think that she was like an 85-year-old supermodel. And she's vigorous, and she's energetic, and she's beautiful. And she always says about her tumors, she goes, "You know what? They don't bother me, so I don't bother them."
Great perspective. Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Just, it is Breast Cancer Awareness, and I wanted to definitely have you talk about that. It could help, even if it helps one.
But you know what? Okay, so the word metastatic means that it has gone to another organ. It's traveled outside its little shell. And even a few years ago, if you were diagnosed with metastatic cancer, you were basically, there's nothing they could do for you. And now they do have medicine for you. So when I say we live at a time that we can hope, that's not just like a little Hallmark card. It's the truth. If you get a diagnosis, or your family member does, or a loved one, please don't go into this dark, dark emotional hole, because we are all living in a time where we can rely on science and hope.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I've kind of seen a trend throughout this whole conversation with you, and it's always just having that mindset, that I can do it mindset, and I can get through this no matter how bad things are. Like you were explaining with your situation with Caitlyn Ohashi, to where in the beginning she just didn't want to do it. And I know I keep referring back to that, but it's just such a good focal point that you transformed her, and she transformed herself into this confident individual that, I'm sure she didn't have the same insecurities she had when she started. And it's kind of the same thing, like you're relating back to breast cancer, is you just have to be confident, and you just have to have that mindset that I can do this. And I think that's definitely very powerful. So thank you for that.
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. So Miss Val, you retired, 2 years ago now? A year ago? Well, I don't remember the exact date, but anyways, you retired as one of the most successful, not only gymnastics coach, but coaches in the history of sports. So what now? You retired. What are your goals, and what are you kind of looking forward to now?
Well, the reason why I chose to retire was because I felt like I wanted to be an agitator in a conversation about, is all winning success? And it's something that I thought about a lot when the sexual abuse scandal came about with USA Gymnastics. And because we'd won so much internationally, and Olympic medals and this and that, but so many young girls had been abused, that could we really claim that as success? And then I was asked by Senator Feinstein how to clean up the sport of gymnastics. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. It has nothing to do with the sport of gymnastics. The sport of gymnastics is amazing. It has to do with this culture of winning, and this win at all cost culture that we've seemed to have all bought into on every level and every facet of life.
Right.
And I felt that we're at a time that we really needed to have conversation about how to develop champions in every aspect of life without compromising the human spirit. And I've certainly made my mistakes along the way, and I've learned from them, and I've studied other people, and I'm a voracious reader. And I just like, okay, let's not like I have the answers as much as I just want to be a part of the conversation and start the conversations. So I'm doing a lot of speaking about that. And so that's one side of it. And then the other side of what I want to do in retirement is get back to my roots in the theater. And I'm hell-bent on developing an urban nutcracker for film. And I also want to develop a Broadway show, a theater show called Trash, about the environment and about people wake the F up and let's start doing something to save our environment.
Wow, that's powerful. Wow, that gets me excited. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, they retire like, and they get those questions like, are you done? But for you, it's like, you're almost just getting started again.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And when I got diagnosed with cancer, I think anytime that you're hit with something of that magnitude, I think that most people have the same realization. And that is that we all have an expiration date. We just don't know when ours is. And, Kobe Bryant did not know that morning that was going to be his last morning on earth.
Right.
And I have so many things that I want to do and so many interests, so many books I want to read, so many podcasts I want to listen. I'm like, there's so much to do while I have this time on earth. And I don't know whether I'm going to live another 40 years or I'm going to live another 2 days. I don't know. So I don't want to waste one day of my life not accomplishing something that fuels my soul.
Right. Wow. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I think I have that mindset. It's like, there's so much to do. When people tell me like, oh, I'm bored. It's like, really?
How can you be bored?
Yeah. Like there's not enough hours. There's not enough minutes in the day. Like, we need longer days.
Right.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Miss Val. And kind of as we kind of start wrapping this up, we have a lot of young listeners. We have listeners, of all ages. And what is, I guess, some advice you would give, not to just gymnasts, or not to just athletes and coaches, but to just our younger generation coming up, and maybe people that do want to go into some of these professions that you've been able to accomplish?
I really would love to just impart to younger people that you were born for a reason. You're unique, you're special, you're wonderful. As I said before, there's never been another person on earth like you. And when you try to be somebody else or like somebody else, or when you do things to make other people happy, you're diminishing your own light. And so if I could coach you up right now, it would be go sit and have some quiet time, go for a walk, and think about all of the ways that all of the things you really like about yourself. And if you can't come up with many, take a deep breath and let it out, and just think of one thing that you really like about yourself, and pat yourself on the back and give yourself an atta-girl or an atta-boy. And then think of one more thing. And in that process, realize that when you try to be somebody else, you will always fail, because you'll never be as good at them as being them as they're at being them. And you are enough. You're not just enough. You are truly, truly special. Otherwise, you would have never been born. The odds of you ever being born were so incredible that there's a reason why you're here. When I retired, about a week after I retired, I was on an airplane, and a woman said to me, "What do you do for a living?" And I said, no, she goes, "What do you do?" And I go, whoa. If you asked me a week ago, I would have said, "I'm the head coach at the UCLA women's gymnastics team." And I said, "But you're asking me today, and I've retired. So now I'm just me." And she said, "Honey, lose the just. me is not only enough, but it's magnificent. I was like, and it was so like that one little conversation has stuck with me since then, that me just being me is more than just enough. I have my own light. I have my own magnificence, and I don't need a title to make me any more magnificent. So young people, you are living in a time that us adults could have never imagined. And I'm talking about the phone and social media and comparing yourselves constantly to other people. And so my advice to you is, when you get on your phone and when you check out social media and you check out TikTok, take a deep breath before you do it and realize that people only post things that they're trying to make a statement with. That's not their truth of who they really are all the time. And so you can enjoy it, enjoy social media, enjoy the TikToks, enjoy all that, but don't compare yourself to them, because what you're seeing is not the whole truth.
Yeah. And people, you use it and enjoy it to laugh and maybe cry or whatever that is. But at some point, every individual, like you said, is unique. They all have unique abilities and assets, no matter what they are.
Right.
And even if it's, a lot of times a student or an athlete, they're struggling, or maybe they are, they are having trouble, or maybe they're getting into trouble. It's like there's a reason behind why that is.
Right.
Whatever it is. And we have to ask those questions. You said it well, we have to ask why, and we have to, understand what's going on behind the scenes, because if they're acting out, there's a reason why. It's not just because they want to be bad. No one wants to be, bad or trouble. There's a reason why.
Right. Right. And understand why you're feeling like that. It has been proven scientifically that when you think about things that you're grateful for, it changes the chemistry in your brain to being positive, to dopamine that makes you feel good about yourself. So the times that you're really down and struggling, the times that you don't like yourself, the times when you are wondering, why do I always get in trouble? Why does this always happen to me? Instead of trying to figure all that out at that moment, my best advice to you is to think of 3 things that you're grateful for. And one of the things that I always think about immediately is that I have a strong mind and a strong body. Like, I can get up and walk around by myself. The other thing is that as a woman, I live in this country, because there are a lot of countries that don't respect women as human beings even.
Absolutely.
They're basically all slaves. And then, I can just go on. Like, I spend the majority of my day in gratitude of, wow, like every single time I eat something, I'm so grateful that I can just go to the refrigerator and eat something. And when you think about things you're grateful for, it's been proven. This isn't me just talking to you. This is science. The brain changes its chemistry, and the brain, you start to feel happier. And when you're in that state, when you're in a state of gratitude and happiness, that's when you should start doing some self-examination as to, why do I always get in trouble? Or why is my mom always yelling at me? Or why don't I have any friends? That's the state that you start thinking about that in, not in the state when you're sad.
Right. And these kids that, they need more role models and less critics at a lot of times.
Absolutely.
I think, you've done an amazing job with that. And that leads me into a question is, Miss Val, you've had a wonderful, impeccable career. What are you most proud of? What are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of when someone that I've worked with, or an athlete, or even a fan, tells me that something that I said or helped them make different and better choices in their lives. That something that I said or did really impacted their life on a massive scale, not just for that day, but it's changed how they go about their lives or the choices that they make in their lives. Because the truth is, everything that I know, everything that you know, we have learned from someone else.
Right.
And like, I can't go to Eleanor Roosevelt, who's dead, and say, thank you so much from everything I've learned from you. You know, I can't go to someone, John Wooden, anymore and say, thank you so much. You know, so when people take the time, or my student athletes or my coaches I've worked with take the time to tell me, God, Miss Val, I remember when you said this to me, and I think about it all the time, or it's really helped me when I want to help raise my children. That's my win-win for my career.
That's fantastic. And you brought up a good point there. It's like, we learn so much from, through books a lot of times, whether it's Coach Wooden or Abraham Lincoln or whoever it is. It's like, we don't even, I've never met this person, never will, but we still continue learning so much. And, I would say, besides my parents and a lot of, different coaches or teachers, like I think probably Coach Wooden, and there's a few other, people I've read a lot of books and read about that have had a huge impact on me as well. So I would, just read. So, and that brings us into a good little segue is you released a book, and you wrote a book called Life is Short, Don't Wait to Dance. I've had a chance. I've read it, I think, at least twice now through.
Wow.
It's amazing. And I would recommend it, for all of our listeners. And would you want to talk about that briefly?
Sure. So the book is basically about how did me, a dancer, choreographer, figure out how to be a successful coach in this world of athletics, which I knew nothing about. And I go into a lot of the things that I did wrong, the things that didn't work. And I go into a lot of the things that I did with our team only because they seemed natural for me to want to do them. But that developed our brand that has become UCLA Gymnastics. And the important part of reading my book isn't that everything I did was right. It's not about being right or wrong, or it's not about being better than another coach or not. It's simply to show you that I figured out how to be successful in a world that I knew nothing about by figuring out how to be the best me I could be. And so as you read the book, I hope that you will go, wow, okay, I don't have to do things exactly like my parents want me to do, or my teachers want me to do, or my coaches want me to do, as long as I am becoming a better version of myself every day. Then that's not just enough, but that's really pretty cool. And so that's what the book's about. It's a really easy read. It's very simple reading. And I think there's some funny parts in it. And there are parts in it that I wasn't even going to put in. I'm so glad I had a co-author, because he was like, okay, let's talk about why you decided not to have team captains. I was like, why is that a big deal? Like, that's not interesting. He goes, yeah, it is. He goes, I was on a football team my whole life, and I was on the wrestling team, and we always had team captains. Why didn't you have team captains? I was like, oh, okay. So there's like the whole part in there about why I never had team captains. And I would have never put that in because I didn't think that was interesting. But so many people have shared with me the fact that they think that's a really interesting part of the book.
Yeah, it's those little details. I would agree. Those little details, they are very important, and they kind of pop out and stand out. Where can our listeners find your book at?
Amazon, or you can go to my website, officialmissval.com. And on my website, I have my book. I have my musings, things that I think about and I write about. I have my swag, my t-shirts, my sweatshirts, my book, my this and that. I have gaiters, a mask that I just put out. But I would like to share with the readers that anything you buy on my website, whether it's my book or actually the t-shirts and the sweatshirts are really great material. They're some of my favorite things that I wear. And the masks, the gaiters, all of the profits go to helping a community outside of Houston. It's called The Refuge, and they rescue girls from sex trafficking. And so I'm really, really very, very honored to be able to just give them all of my proceeds from everything you guys buy from me. So thank you in advance.
That's amazing. And I will put all the links in there. And, you know, our first episode we ever did was we had a journalist reporter on, and the whole episode was about human and sex trafficking. So our listeners,
wow.
that was a huge, we had a lot of listeners tune into that one. So I think they will be.
Thank you for doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And our last little segment is we ask all of our guests this. It's called the Freedom Fighter of the Week. So this is someone that has been, I guess, most influential in your life, helping you get to where you are today. Who's your Freedom Fighter of the Week, Miss Val?
Well, this is going to sound corny, but my Freedom Fighter of the Week is my husband, Bobby Field. And I say that because he is one of the most decent and honorable human beings I've ever met. I respect him as much as I love him. And at times I respect him even more. But the reason why he's a Freedom Fighter of the Week for me is because he and I are so different. Like, he is nearly sainthood, and I can be a total brat at times. And even when I'm being a brat, he doesn't coddle me, but he doesn't scold me either. He lets me be me. And in doing so, it allows me to just self-analyze and go, God, that was really crummy. I did that. And, you know, come about and apologize in my own time and all that. So he's really a great, great person, friend in my life that appreciates me for the good, the not so good. But because of that, I am a better person because I live with him. And I have him as an example every day of my life.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And
thank you.
I just want to, thank you again. I'm so honored. And from the bottom of my heart, I'm so gracious of your time. And I can't thank you enough, Miss Val. So thank you for coming on.
Of course.
Thank you.
And great job. I'm so excited that you guys are doing this podcast. You're doing good work. You're making the world a better place.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you. I'm so humbled you say that. And, you lead by example, and we really get to follow you and learn from you. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All righty.
Have
a great night.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Freedom First podcast. Please subscribe and give us your honest rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Let freedom ring.